Their aura is unequal.
Well, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Or whatever. And they told me to make it a little more raspy, and I follow directions.
Their contents are legendary.
Like that little sheet you see is his concept drawing.
Their attitude is embraced. Tune in to one of the most up-and-rising kaiju-sized groups within our community. So go ahead and watch all of their creative content, including that of the Raw Attitude live interview, where they have special guests ranging from actors, directors, toy creators, artists, and many, many more. You can also find them on multiple of other social media platforms, ranging from Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You could even sit back and watch your favorite classic monster movie and even watch us go through one of the most iconic games on Twitch. Featuring your hosts, Eric Stolp, Adrian Settle, Joe Myers, Samson West, Jordan Adorno. They are the Monsters with Attitude.
What's going on, listeners with Attitude? Thanks for tuning in to another Raw Live Attitude interview. As always, I am your host, Mr. Joe Mama, and joined with me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Mr. Eric Stolp. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Excited for this interview.
Me too, man. I'm a big fan of several of his movies. I haven't seen them all yet, but I am working my way through it. And honestly, I have not found one that I have not enjoyed. So I'm very excited. Real quick, before we introduce our guests, I would like to say that this episode is brought to you by our friends at Super 7. For all your collecting and memorabilia needs, please visit super7.com/monsterswithattitude 2024. And with that, Mr. Stolp, let us welcome Mr. Luke Sparke, the writer, director, producer extraordinaire of the new film Primitive War. Luke, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you guys today over in America?
Fantastic. A little cold, waiting for spring to kick in, but, can't complain. There's no snow, so I'm not complaining. Yeah.
Right,
Luke,
cool.
there's a lot we want to talk to, so I kind of want to jump right into it if you're okay with it. What started your journey in filmmaking? What kind of lit that spark that made you want to pursue this?
No pun intended about Spark.
Oh,
yeah. Look, it's a long. Everything's a long journey. But it probably sounds cliche, but it's definitely harkens back to me. Growing up in the 80s. Sitting there watching Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back on my Star Wars beanbag. So as much as I'm a monster fan, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, which you can probably tell from behind me.
Love it.
Something that's never gone away. But also not only watching those shows, like as a kid, and some other kids didn't understand this, but I really liked going to the video store and renting the behind the scenes VHS of making of Empire Strikes Back. I think it was called S Special Effects or something like that, hosted by Mark Hamill, and they talked about the behind the scenes. And it was my first, even as a kid, I was like, wow, this is amazing how they make these crazy movies. And I think there was one for Jedi as well. So really George Lucas and James Cameron and Spielberg sparked me into wanting to be that. And at the same time, my parents out here in Australia, sort of from an early age, my father collected military memorabilia, and that sort of grew into a family business where we would, talk about history every Anzac Day, which is like our Memorial Day out here. And we would do school lectures, and kids would come to our house to look at all the memorabilia, and they kept growing and growing until it eventually led into the film industry. So I sort of went straight from high school to family business to working on film sets, doing costumes and props and military stuff behind the scenes to make films look right. And like 2002, I worked on my first Hollywood film, which was called The Great Raid, starring Benjamin Bratt. had James Franco set in World War II, and I got to meet all these amazing, Hollywood actors that came over here and Hollywood crew. And again, my whole idea since being a kid was like, I want to be a director. Obviously, a lot of people have that dream, and how to get that is very, hard. But I just kept plugging away and making connections and working on these, amazing projects, and that led to eventually work on the Spielberg TV series, The Pacific, which is the Band of Brothers sequel.
Shut up.
Yeah. So I worked on.
Love that. Oh my god.
Yeah. So like I was, as costume and military equipment and stuff. I was there from I was there from day one where they set up in North Queensland, and I was there the last day where I packed the last container to ship back to America. So I got to experience that entire 11 and a half months of filming, which was like such a baptism of fire, even for people who worked a lot in the industry. It was just like, it was a huge undertaking. And I really feel like I always say to people, and there might be a question, but I always say to people, like, the best experience if you want to get into this industry is to just do it, like to just jump in and do it. And I'm sure there's film schools, and I'm not throwing shade on any of that, but to experience it real time in real things, if you want to be in it, you can just sit back, even at lunchtime, and just sit back and just watch it. And you watch the circus and you watch the stuff happening, and it's the best experience you can possibly get. So I really feel like the Pacific really helped kickstart me into like the next phase. After that, I worked on Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, where I was doing Hugh Jackman's military stuff for the opening sequence of that movie, where it's Logan through time, all the different like Civil War and World War II. And like I worked on that sort of for a couple of weeks. They brought me in straight from the Pacific to, sort of help on that, which was really, again, an amazing experience, and to meet Hugh and everything else. And that led me to eventually saying, look, I'm just going to dive in and make my first feature film and get a crew around me who I've sort of made connections with throughout my experience. And that was a tough call, because at that time, literally the time I said I'm going to do it, I got a call from another big World War I film saying, hey, we want you to come back from the Pacific team back together, and you do costume. And I had to say, I'm going to go and do this. And they're like, you'll never work for me again if you do that. And I was like, I'm going to do it. So, it's one of those sliding door moments. That's my sort of, in a nutshell, long history. And there's a lot of minutiae behind that of like, success and failures and everything else to get to where you have to be.
Luke, we were already a fan of yours, but I think Eric fell in love with you when you mentioned the Pacific. So.
Dude, Pacific and Band of Brothers is tops for me. I love those miniseries. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. Well, happy that if you want to ask, happy to talk about the Pacific as much as you want, because I was there every day. But yeah.
Oh my God, I could pick your brain for days.
yeah. And that itself, like as our family sort of came from, this sort of quasi-military background. Like my father was in the military, and that's what got him into doing the collecting thing. So for me, working on that show was just an amazing experience, because not only was I a huge Band of Brothers fan and a huge history fan, just to be there and see that, just how big that show was. Like I didn't even know if I'd ever work on something that big again, because it was like HBO in its prime. They just was just like 10 episodes. Like I don't want to say endless amounts of money, because I know every show has a budget, but at that point in time in that history, it was just kind of like, you need to do something. Directors were like, we need to reshoot this day. Spielberg was giving notes back to the crew. It's like, not redo that. It's like, all right, here's 100 guys or 200 extras and this massive crew. We're going to do it again. And, just to get it right, and just to have, people like Captain Dale Dye, who was the military advisor of Private Ryan and Band of Brothers. He was there on set, who I happened to meet on that other film, The Great Raid, with Benjamin Bratt. He actually came over to do that with his team because of Private Ryan. So I already had this connection with people like that, who I'll sort of touch back on about Primitive War later. But Primitive War was my first movie, funnily enough, that's actually military based. I don't know why. I had this sort of in the back of my mind. People were like, hey, your first film should just be military, because that's what you guys do best. And I just had this feeling of like, every first film is always hit or miss, baptism of fire, low budget, the first film. And I just didn't want my first film to be some low budget war film where people go, because war films for me, like I hold it high regard, obviously. So I made a couple of films, obviously the Occupation series that touches on military and that, but this is my first film, Primitive War, where it's actually like, even though there's dinosaurs, it's actually like, we're in a war zone. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I give props to the Pacific a lot to shape me to who I am, because I would sit down with the DPs at lunch, the camera guys, and just like pick their brain. And they're so again, if you're on the team and you're in the zone, it's just ask the question. I mean, obviously not all the time. Not be like, "Excuse me," and they're like, "I'm trying to say shut up here." But, I just remember times where we were kind of lost, where we were waiting on the weather or waiting on things. I happened to be holding some costumes near them or a helmet near them, and I was like, "Hey, Remy, what kind of lens are you using? And why did you pick that lens? And why are you doing that?" And he was just like, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing this because blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Thanks, man." And then you move on. So, it's all there if you want to learn in those sort of big environments.
Wow. I mean, honestly, bravo for you to taking that step, because not a lot of people would have done that. They couldn't have been like, you're giving up this opportunity of coming back to this big budget, production. And you're like, no, I got to follow my heart and I got to do what I really set my mind to and what my dream is. So kudos to you, because a lot of people couldn't do that. So
thanks. I appreciate it. It was definitely one of the sliding door moments.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, we are not, we are a Godzilla Tokusatsu Kaiju kind of type based podcast, as you saw from our opening video.
Yeah.
But we've been kind of going down other avenues and branching out into different things that we really love and are passionate about. Like you, Star Wars, Marvel, dinosaurs, kind of all that stuff kind of roll under one. And I have to ask, like, are you a Godzilla or Kaiju fan? Maybe Tokusatsu, any of that stuff kind of hit when you were a kid, along with Marvel or Star Wars?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I love my Godzilla films.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's okay to say these days, but the '98 Godzilla, you know what I mean? Like, it was in my
it's okay. It's okay.
Right in my prime of, like, obviously the age group of going to the movies when you're a teenager in high school. Coming out after Lost World. Definitely tried to lean on the Jurassic Park. The first teaser trailer with the Bigfoot coming down, smashing the T-Rex. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw that a couple of times in cinemas. But yeah, obviously, all that sort of good genre monster movie stuff is all my jam. So I love the Gareth Edwards reboot that came out, with Aaron Taylor Johnson. Really enjoyed that, and I've been watching. Premiere day, I'm always going to the Godzillaverse, things and ones that are coming out. They filmed a lot in Queensland, so I have a lot of friends and crew that worked on them as well while I was working on my show. So we're always talking about it. And Sam Neill just got cast in the next Godzilla film.
Yes,
and
he did.
I directed Sam Neill like 2 movies ago in my prime movie, Bring Him to Me. So obviously, and Sam Neill, Jurassic Park. So it's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask now. We were going to ask it later, but since you brought up Sam Neill, how was it like working with him? How was he in real life? How was he on set?
It's luckily.
Like a cool guy.
Yeah, look, luckily you don't get to say much in life in this industry, but Sam Neill is probably the exact person you'd expect him to be. You know what I mean? Like, he's a gentleman. He's awesome to work with. Just amazing. Very kind. We got along really well. He gave me a great reference for, to help my career for Hollywood. So, very, very kind, very, very gracious, amazing actor, really great to work with, just does his thing. I know this, I think it's out now. I hope it's out now. The story that he had cancer and he was fighting it. At the time that wasn't a story. So he had to tell me privately. So it's something we had to watch while we were filming. But yeah, just as soon as you say action, even everything else he's got going on in his life, just straight on to being the character, and then cut, and then he'd be back to being Sam Neill. And again, just like talking at the Pacific, amazing just to sit down at lunch breaks and he's like, "Do you want to talk about Jurassic Park?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to talk about Jurassic Park."
Hell yeah.
Where some other actors are not like that, you know what I mean? And again, I'm not going to name names, but I work with some, whether it's my films or on other films, being costume, where it's like, "Hey, I loved you," and that it's like, "Don't talk to me." I don't want to talk about that. And he's like, "Okay, no worries." But yeah, Sam is not that guy, and Sam is amazing.
Yeah, we unfortunately know what you mean. What's the expression? Don't meet your heroes or something like
Don't meet
that.
your heroes. That is really true. I will say
Yeah.
that. But then again, Sam Neill is a hero of mine, so I guess he can buck the trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, just an amazing guy, and just hearing his stories about Spielberg and Jurassic Park, and all those experiences, or Joe Johnson and Jurassic Park 3. So yeah, I talked to him. I always have a meeting in my office with the cast before we start shooting, just to talk about characters and everything else. And I think for that day, the conversation about characters was like this much, and talk about his career and Jurassic Park like this much of just sitting on his couch, and my assistant's knocking the door, being like, "You've got the next one." I'm like, "Okay." I cast people who I want to work with because I'm fans. So if you ever see my casting, you probably see a whole list of people be like, "Oh, let's tick this," and I take my Jurassic Park collectibles to set. Can you sign this, please, Mr. Sam? So yeah, very interesting way. I worked with Tim Morrison from Boba Fett and that a couple of times, and it's the same thing. I've got all these signed things from all these actors because I'm a huge fanboy. So
yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I was literally just going to say that it seems like what's really great is that you're a fan of theirs as well, along with directing them. So I think it kind of puts more of a more personal relationship, honestly, with director actor, along with you being a fan. But that's so great. Like, you are living a dream in a lot of our shoes where we would love to talk and hang out with these people, and you're just doing it, and maybe we put them on a high pedestal because we're such fans with them, but just knowing that they're just normal people like us, it brings a smile to my face, honestly. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, I think that's something that I had to get over as well, because I'm a fan not just of actors, I'm a fan of movies. I'm opening night, I still go to all these event movies and everything else. But so I had to early on, make sure that I remember that they're here, they're working with me, they're human beings, because otherwise I would geek out all the time. You know what I mean? So you have to put that thing aside, and there's just moments where you can sit back and go, "That was cool," but then back to work. So yeah. The Hugh Jackman was the one that caught me. You know what I mean? Like, I was literally tongue-tied first time I met him. It was a very, very embarrassing experience. First time I've actually properly been starstruck.
Rightfully so, though.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of titles in the film industry. You've had you're obviously a writer, you've been an editor, a production design, executive producer, and now director. What kind of challenges do each of those jobs bring, and which do you feel you are strongest at?
Whew, that's a big question. Yeah, I've had lots of titles, and I feel like I've succeeded in I always try to succeed what I set out to do. I guess in a film like this, Primitive War, I've actually, like, all those titles are my titles on this film, actually, and some of it's out of necessity, budget, some of it's out of just the where we are in Australia in the film industry, and some of it's out of me just thinking I can achieve it. So when you're doing them all, it's definitely harder. Especially, I think what's the hardest part is being a production designer and a director, because those key roles are usually hand in hand with two different people, and it's because we did this film ourselves independently in-house. The last couple of films I sort of stepped into a production designer role, and that's something that I don't want to it's not something I see myself being like production designer, PGA awards, all that kind of stuff, because it's something that I just did out of necessity, because my earlier films, you sort of get the crew in, and you start working with them, and it's the one department where I've always felt lacking, because there's amazing designers out there who I love to work with, and they write to me all the time, but it's just a budgetary thing. And you go, oh, well, we won't get those amazing guys. We'll get these other guys who are up and coming, or they've done this and that, and it doesn't gel very well. And I've walked away being disappointed in certain areas. So, me being me, I'm always like, well, rather than bitching about it, I'll just try my hand myself, because I came from that art costume background, so at least I have some sense of doing it, and do it myself. And it's kind of worked for the last couple of films. I think Primitive War is my limit, because it's like such a big film, and we're building villages and military stuff, and period pieces, which is always harder than just modern day. But it works. But yeah, that definitely took a toll on me, because you have the entire art department, and then the entire crew and cast and everyone else pulling at me on set. So that was a very interesting experience. Costume. I have a great team these days who I've worked with growing up, my family, obviously. So they handle all that, which is great. I think my favorite part obviously is directing, because that's why would you be a director if you didn't enjoy it? Because it's really, really hard. I wouldn't say it's something that you'd be like, I'm going to get into this and ruin my life. But at the same time, editing is really my love of the whole thing, because it's the final draft, the final piece. It's me sitting in a editing room by myself or with one other person. All the noise of sets all gone, and it's just you're focused on the vision, and you can change scenes and do all that kind of good stuff. So that's my favorite part of the whole process. However, I say that most of the time, but Primitive War was actually a general thrill to direct. So I actually had my most favorite time directing on this particular movie, even though it was very, very tough.
Yeah. You talked about the cast and crew that you've worked with. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here. I'm obviously a fan of Power Rangers. You worked with Dan Ewing several times in several different movies. How'd you guys meet? How'd that friendship or work relationship start? And
because Dan was in one of the series, right? The Power Rangers.
Yes, he was in RPM. Yep. And
yeah.
Coincidentally, that's actually how I stumbled on your movies several years ago. Was looking him up on IMDb, and I saw your movies and I watched them. So
how I stumbled onto Dan was I was casting my first movie, which is it's a monster movie. My first movie in Australia is called Red Billabong, which Americans don't know what a Billabong is, so they called it Devil Beneath over there. And it was my first film. It was hard work, to make that happen. We put a casting, auditioning people, and his agent sent me his reel. I was interested. He, for the budget that we had and the size of the film, it fit. And I sort of met with him, and he auditioned in front of me. And I cast him in that, and obviously we worked well enough together where I cast him in the next movie. It wasn't supposed to be the lead actually in the next movie because he didn't want to do the lead twice. But then an actor for the lead fell out within he got sick a couple of days before shoot and had to literally change the whole cast, and I just bumped him up and then bumped someone else up to his role, so I had to do a thing, and then that led to a sequel of that movie. So obviously I had to bring him back, so we worked together a couple of times. We still talk and communicate and everything else, and he went off and did some other films, and I've done some films. So it's always good to change things up.
Right on.
I mean, again, he's without speaking for Dan, he's the same as me. He loves films and fanboys, so we always send each other memes and we're always on set going, this is like that scene on Predator, and this is like the scene on this, and you get that shorthand with people, shorthand of the same age group, which is always easier, or same age group but also the same genre space, so I can be like, hey, in Die Hard, or this scene, and he's like, got it, I know what you're talking about, rather than going this movie where the thing I really love, and then some actors looking at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and you're like, okay, come a different angle. Someone like him is obviously easier for me because we're genre fans.
No, that's cool. I'm glad that he seems like a good guy, because he was actually my favorite Ranger in the series that he did many years ago when I was younger. But that was cool to see. And it's funny that you say you changed the name from Billabong, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but for us in America, Billabong is a clothing company. It's a surfing clothing company. So I would have thought, just seeing a title, I would have it's a movie about surfing or whatever,
That's what I got told. I mean, the Billabong, the Billabong brand started out here in Australia. I used to wear it. It's from down south, past where I grew up. So Billabong, when I was growing up, was still coming where it was, and all the kids would wear Billabong clothes growing up. So
Oh, okay. Right on.
Interesting.
I wore that clothing when I was probably in high school or something, about 150 pounds ago.
Fair enough.
So it's funny how you're talking about people knowing certain scenes, and if you talk about certain scenes, someone knows what you're talking about. Now, I've heard that you don't like watching certain movies that are similar in some aspects to maybe a film that you're possibly shooting or working on, because you want to kind of make it your own. Describe that to me and in your own words, and how is it more challenging than kind of seeing something that maybe you could relate to or examples?
Yeah, look, I've done both, and I think I sort of mentioned that thing when I was filming the film Bring Him to Me, which was a crime movie, and it was out of my sort of wheelhouse at the time. And Hollywood loves to pin things on you. And once I made Occupation Rainfall, everyone's like, "Oh, you're the alien guy." And I was like, "Yeah, but I can do other stuff, right? Like I got scripts. There's a comedy or there's a drama or there's a war film." And they're like, "No, you're the alien guy." And I'm like, "Oh, hey, look, if you want to keep giving me alien films, I'm happy to do it," which no one did. I was like, "But I want to stretch my legs and do something else." And that script came up through just literally a LinkedIn. This is how cheeky some people should and can and should be. This was just literally just a LinkedIn message to me. It was like, "Hey, I'm a writer," which I get all the time, obviously. I'm a writer, and here's my pitch deck, and here's a sort of thing, and I just grabbed my attention. So just if it's good, you can get people's attention if it's a very good pitch. It was crime, and I've never really done crime before at all, to be honest. I never really thought about it, and it's not a genre of movies where I go and I watch religiously. Like if it's a Saturday night or I got nothing to do, which is not usual, but if I want to have a rest, I should rephrase that. If I want to have a rest and turn my brain off, it's always either a monster movie or a genre movie or something like that. So I never really go the sort of the crime route, and instead, and then people started saying, "Hey, you should watch, Goodfellas again. You should watch Casino, and you should watch all these movies," which I've seen, and they're amazing. But for that particular one, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that. Let me have my own take on it, where something like a genre piece like Primitive War or Rainfall, and that, like all these films are burned into my brain, so I can't help myself but go, "Hey, this is like the scene from The Rock." And then as soon as my brain says that, I start then going, "Let's have the camera lower." And then people go, "This is literally just the same shot." I'm like, let's change it a little bit because it's in my brain. Where Bringing to Me, I literally was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do my thing, and then I'll watch those films later. So that was just a different thing I decided to do for myself, just as an exercise. You know what I mean? Like,
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think now would be a great time to show the trailer for Primitive War. And I'm not saying this just to blow smoke, Luke, because you're here. I mean this truthfully. Dude. I honestly think this is like the number one movie I'm most excited for this year. And again, I am not just saying that because you're here. Truthfully.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So honestly, when go ahead.
No, it's been an interesting 2 weeks or week and a half since the trailer launched. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely got traction and gone bigger than I expected. You know what I mean? Like, we sat there, myself and my co-producer Alex, who's basically just out. Me and him are like the entire post team on this movie. We sat there after we sort of had a trailer editor come in, an amazing trailer that sort of pitched me on LinkedIn. He's like, "Hey, I took Bring Him to Me trailer and I made something different, and I like to pitch myself to be your trailer editor, because usually I edit my own trailers because I love editing and I love trailers. Trailers are like sick, I mean, their own little subculture, and I'm really into them. I used to go and get Star Wars and recut Star Wars to make my own trailers and put them on YouTube back before I was a director. And so he pitched it, and I was like, you know what? I'm so busy on this movie that maybe as a time to step back and do more like a little mini studio, where I have people doing things for me, which I'm really okay with if it's the right person. So he pitched the trailer to us, and we worked with him, and then we sort of had it all graded and everything else. A couple weeks ago, we sat back, and I'm like, "Do you think it's good?" And Alex is like, I think it's good. I think it's got something here. I think we're onto something. But yeah, I didn't expect the sort of viral thing that kind of happened with this trailer, which is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, Joe asked me about watching it, and I was like, no. And I watched, and I go, that's literally better than the last few Jurassic Park movies that we've gotten just by that trailer. I was like, that's exactly what we need. So, bravo.
Great. Well, I don't want to throw shade on other franchises.
I know.
And I've realized now, and if anyone's listening to this, I've realized now that the dinosaur fan group on the internet is very strong. It is a very strong fan group. I thought Star Wars fans were like, crazy, because I am one of them, and not to say people are crazy, but I thought they were like, really passionate. I guess the word is I use, because I am a Star Wars fan, and when the Last Jedi came out, I was one of those people that went as very divisive. You know what I mean? I was like,
Mhm.
not ruin my childhood crazy, but definitely a strong opinion on like The Last Jedi.
Mhm.
So, and then I saw Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and you know, I don't want to throw shade.
I'll read your mind, man.
But like saying that, I'm a huge Jurassic series fan.
Yeah.
I tweeted that just a couple of hours ago because there was a Collider article that came out. If anyone's seen the Collider article,
Yeah,
and it was
I
a
saw
very
that.
interesting. It was a very interesting headline. You can go look that up if you're listening. Very interesting headline. But I made sure I commented on it and I said, hey, I love Jurassic franchise, so I want people to see both. You know what I mean? Like I am not out to be like, screw Jurassic Park, Primitive War. Like, of course, I'm Primitive War, but like, it wouldn't, you know, Jurassic wouldn't, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Jurassic Park. Both in terms of the movie and also me as a fan. I mean, I touched on the movies before, but Jurassic Park again came out in '93, so it was like for me, you know, I bought '84, so it was the perfect time for me as I watched these behind the scenes of Star Wars and that, but when I saw Jurassic Park on the big screen, you know, blew my mind, and also was like, I am going to make a movie. I'm going to do this, you know what I mean? As a 9-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not going to, you know, I'm not here to bitch about Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. Go see both.
Go see both. All right, let's watch that trailer.
All right.
RT Vulture looking for SFC Baker. Yeah, you found him. You ordered, Sarge.
We all make some poor life choices, Baker. The old man would love to discuss the consequences with you.
3 days ago, I lost my Green Berets. There is something going on in that valley. RT Vulture. Reconnaissance is your business. And I need you all to find them for me.
What is it? Track. Is it our guys? No. Animal. Something big. Telling you guys, there's monsters out here.
Yes. All right, let's go watch it right now in theaters. I can't wait. Honestly, that looks fantastic. Luke, can you tell us how you got attached to this? How did this movie, because it's based off books, how did this get the wheels in motion for a movie adaptation, and how did you come on board with it?
Yeah. It was interesting, like just how life happens. I was literally just scrolling through just social media one day, and it happened to be the right time where I was looking for next projects and what to do, and always trying to fill my slate with stuff. It's always, you know, I know some people like to go one film at a time and worry about one film, and I used to do that, and now I sort of have like a whole slate where I have like 6 things on the go, because if one gets going, I'm like, great, that's what we're going to do, rather than going, I'm doing this next film, and then people eventually, you know, if you can't get through the door, then you've just spent years of your life, and you go, oh my god, I gotta go find something else, and then just more time. So I happened to be at the right time, scrolling through Facebook or social media or something, and I think it was the Kickstarter campaign for the Primitive War graphic novel, and it must have been a sponsored post or something, because it came up, you know, you might like this, and it was the front cover of the issue, and it was a Utah raptor jumping out of the jungle fighting this, you know, Vietnam soldier, and I was like, hold the phone, this is something that I'm interested in, because what is this? I've never seen this before. Like, this sounds like something I would play with as a kid with my Jurassic Park T-Rex and my G.I. Joes. Because again, as a kid, I used to get my G.I. Joes and have stop motion animation storyline pictures where I'd set up things and have, you know, the G.I. Joes coming out of Castle Grayskull and you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's all real stories. Yeah, so I saw that picture, and then I went onto the book, and I sort of deep dived into the internet of like, what is this thing, and how do you get the book? And I think I bought it from Amazon and shipped it out to me, or I think I talked to the author. I can't remember the exact timeline. Either way, I reached out to the author. Either he sent me the book or I bought it. And there was another sort of young adult novel I was also looking at that had dinosaurs involved, but a very different sort of thing. It was more like a sci-fi one set on another planet, and there's dinosaurs on the planet and all that kind of stuff. And so I sort of put that one to the side for a second, because I'm like, this is interesting because it's like war, that's my thing. Vietnam, dinosaurs, like, should be an easy sell. Why hasn't anyone done this before? So I read the book, and I immediately identified the scenes that I was like, I can, this is what I would, in my head, I was like, that's a great scene, or that one I can probably drop, and all that kind of stuff. Mine's sticking away as I'm reading it, and I sort of did notes, and then sent my pitch back to Ethan, the author, and was like, this is how I would do it. He obviously liked it. And that was like 2021, and got the rights to it and sequels. Yeah, I've been working on it ever since. My first point of call was to like really go hard on my contacts in Hollywood to be like, hey, this is my next project. This is awesome. Like, come on board. And unfortunately, you would think that it's an easy sell, but the way the studio system works, and if you ever heard stories about suits and, how Hollywood suits work, and that, the feedback was, well, you're not Steven Spielberg. How are you going to make this movie?
Wow.
This isn't Jurassic Park. I don't understand. Why are the dinosaurs in Vietnam? I don't get this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like this continual head against the brick wall sort of situation. And I was like getting a little bit like, sort of downtrodden, because I'm like, oh my God, like this just makes sense to me. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I did bring him to me. I was over in Hollywood for the premiere. While I was there, I sort of had breakfast with Jeremy Piven, and I knew he was coming to Australia, and had some talks with some other financiers and investors at the time over there. And I was on the plane back, and I was like, you know what, let's just do it ourselves. Let's just do it. And again, that's a big thing to go into for such a grandiose movie where people are like, so you're going to do it all yourself. So I got back and I talked to my team and pitched it to them. And once they sort of picked themselves up the floor, I was like, let's just do it. And we went in and we decided to do it. Like, it was like literally a year ago today, we were like on set filming. Most films have like months and months of pre-production, and we only had 4 weeks because it just worked out with the actors of Piven coming over here to Australia, and that means we didn't have to fly him, and all these different sort of things that you sort of go as a producer. Brain takes over to be like, how can we make this happen with the budget that we have? So we had 4 weeks pre to build like all those sets you saw in the trailer and everything else. So yeah, it was like a mammoth undertaking. So that's how that whole thing came about.
That's a shame that the studios kind of shot you down like that, because with all due respect to them and to Steven Spielberg, he's not going to live forever. You would think that they would want to find the next guy that could do something as revolutionary or groundbreaking as he did, to build up, I hate it when I hear that type of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like real producing a movie is where you sit down and you have like 100 problems and you work out solutions to those problems, either way of how to, there's many ways to skin a cat, as much as I hate that phrase because I love cats. There's many ways to do it, and that's what real producing does. And I feel like Hollywood has gone, and again, not throwing shade, but I feel Hollywood has gone a very different route lately, where it's all very much, I don't want to say corporate and all that kind of thing, because it's true, but that's been there since the 70s, so it's not like going away. But like, it's very much like, oh well, this isn't easy, or how are you going to do this? I'm like, well, let's figure it out. Like, let's have these conversations. Exactly. But no one wants to have the conversations. It's like, for some reason, and the budgets are getting less, and Hollywood's getting tighter, and Netflix, like, no one now wants to. They're all scared to do something because of the last couple of years, obviously COVID, and then the strikes, and then wokeness, whatever you want to call it, and then something else. So everyone's kind of like, whoa, everyone's very, very scared. And I'm just like, but if you not I don't want to say the word, if you build it, they will come, because that's true too. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going with something and you want to make it the best, you want to make it authentic, and you have people around you, and that's how Spielberg and the greats started back in the 80s. And for them, that's and those directors love the early directors. John Ford and all those early directors, Spielberg and George Lucas, they always cite them. And my age group is citing George Lucas and Spielberg and Cameron and what they did. But all that stuff in the 80s was them figuring it out and was them going, here's a problem, here's a solution. And I feel all that's gone in this day and age, which is really disappointing. And, you get feedback where they're like, there's no point making, a mid-sized budget film. Either make something super low or wait to get $100 million. I'm like, that makes no sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, it's like winning the lottery. Like, it's just never going to happen. So in my mind, I'm like, let's go out and make something. It might be rough around the edges, or we might fail, or we might succeed, but let's go and do something the best it can be. And a real entrepreneurial sort of feel to the filmmaking, which is what the 70s and 80s really ushered in. So I don't know if the system's going to change. But yeah, it was definitely a bit annoying to have that feedback at that time. Nowadays, who knows? If I had just gone out this year and said, let's make this as a studio film, who knows? But Hollywood changes on a dime very quickly. So nowadays, they can spend $360 million on the Electric State. But I mean, like when you go in the office, crazy. I know, right? For me, it is. That's for sure. I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, imagine what I could do with that money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. It almost feels like oh, sorry, go ahead.
I worked it out. I did the math of like Jurassic World Reboot, Jurassic World Rebirth. Their budget is, I think, 265, and that must be something that they've done for a purpose, because that's just 65 million years ago. $265 million US budget, which over here in Australian dollars is like, not exactly double, but like another 60% on top of that. So, my film would literally be their catering budget, I reckon.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit crazy. And that's, and that's great for them and great for me. So yeah, it's either one doesn't win, but it's just interesting dynamics.
Yeah.
That is insane that the budgets are that high. It's like you almost have to make $1 billion just to damn near.
And they probably will.
I'm sure it will.
And Jurassic World probably will. I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy.
So that's how the whole film came about behind the scenes. And then we got to work making it.
Nice. So where did you get the inspiration or like the reference material to bring these dinosaurs to life? Because like, let's be honest, like they're way different than what we've seen previously. Are these like some favorites that you've had as a kid that you just kind of wanted to bring in there because you haven't seen them before? Did you look up books, check out a whole bunch of dinosaur books in the library and like, hey, just pick out some favorites? What was that process?
Well, I wanted to be very true to the book. Because I always hate when Hollywood buys the rights to a game or a book or an IP and then suddenly look at the Halo series. You know what I mean? Suddenly, everything gets thrown away, and the filmmakers go, "Well, I did this because I wanted to make something for myself. I wanted to do it my way." And then I'm like, "Well, you should have gone and just done your own adjacent thing and called it not Halo and called it or not Star Wars or something else and made your own little thing over there and let the fans do it." So even though the book has it's not I would say it's as mainstream as Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, and that's no offense to Ethan, but it definitely has like a nice cult status, his book, and definitely more since the trailer came out. So I really wanted to make sure that we stayed true to the book. And one of the big things in the book was like the raptors had feathers. I think even in the book, the T-Rex had feathers, but I know talking to Ethan himself, we both agreed that even now, since writing that book, the science has come back that T-Rex probably didn't have feathers, which I was kind of happy with, because doing feathers, I've realized now, is very, very hard. And I can see why no one had done it before. And especially when I'm an independent studio, I was like, oh my God. And at some point last year, all my artists were like, we could probably just not do feathers, and I was like, no, we're gonna do the feathers. We're gonna stick here and we're gonna do the feathers. So I wanted to keep it true to the book, and the Utah Raptors, which we see at the end of the trailer, are very much like the antagonist of the book, and I wanted to keep all that very true. So if you've read the book, the sense of the story is definitely still there. There's some scenes like just been completely lifted. There's scenes that have been combined, and that's something I really worked hard on. And the book has a great variety of dinosaurs in it already, so there's no point straying too much. I will touch on a lot of people on Twitter have sort of talked about the river scene in the trailer. There's a particular dinosaur that comes out and in the trailer out of the water and that, and in the book it's a Caprasuchus, which is a prehistoric crocodile type situation. And it's just, again, while I'm on air, I guess I'll talk about it. It's very interesting because it was in the script. I wrote the scene as it was in the book, and we shot it that way. There's even people referencing the word Caprasuchus in the dialogue and in the actors. And then we got to some test screenings, and it didn't really work as much as I wanted it to. And I sort of asked the test people watching it, I was like, why? And they're like, well, all up to here has been all these like amazing dinosaurs and feathered dinosaurs and crazy stuff. And they're like, oh, we feel like we've seen crocodile movies. We've seen Lake Placid and all their straight to DVD sequels, and we've seen like the crazy, Croc vs. Python and all those asylum type movies. They're like, so kind of they were kind of like meh. And that was interesting to me, and that's why I always like to get advice. I'm definitely not someone that just goes, this is my way or the highway. And I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And we sort of talked as a team, the producers, and everyone's like, yeah, I agree. So we did a change during post-production where we've changed it up. And that's not to say that if I make any sequels to Primitive War, like I can go and lift that scene and make Caprasuchus have a comeback and that. I thought it was very interesting, but I could see the point, and it's something that as a director and producer you have to take on board. And we did a change, and it was a very interesting process.
Feel free to not answer this and tell me to shut up. Is there a dinosaur you replaced it with that you're allowed to say?
Well, it's in the trailer. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see what it is.
Okay. I didn't know if, we're supposed to say the name or not.
I don't know. What do you think it is?
A Spinosaurus?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is by far the number one question that our fans and followers, friends have. Can you ask him if it's the Spinosaurus? I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to that. Like,
it's just funny how it worked out because again, like I know what it is. So me and my guys watch the trailer. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And everyone's like, is that a Spino? Is that a Scuchamimus? Not Scuchamimus. Something I can't pronounce it very well. Something that's very or Baron X, or is it like some people literally like, oh, what a crazy looking Caprasuchus, and they did a little sketch of like a Caprasuchus with a Spinosaurus thing, and they're like, oh, Luke's going crazy with these designs. I'm like, all right. Conjecture is fine. I love conjecture because that's what the internet's for, right? Like, there's no point just being like, be very boring if everyone's like, this is the answer, and everyone's like, okay. But no, it's a Spinosaurus, and there's more to that shot than what you see in the trailer. And in the full shot, you would see the spine come up, and it's just funny how I didn't even think about it, and we just cut it quickly, and you don't really see the back of it. So people were conjecturing, and I was like, that's funny. But when you see it, it's definitely a very interesting design. I know the next feedback on the internet has been like, oh, it's just a rip-off of the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus because his mouth's very similar. But I can tell you right now, it's not. It's when you look at it, you go, oh, that's nothing like Jurassic Park. So yeah. It's just how the shot works with the water spray all behind it. You just don't see the rest of it. But yeah, it's definitely not Jurassic Park 3.
Well, speaking of Jurassic Park 3, as you can see, I've got the poster. That made me fall in love with the Spinosaurus. And that is honestly probably the one reason why I probably will go see Rebirth, is just to kind of see what they do with these new Spinosauruses. But the entirety of your movie interests me, that's for sure. You talked about Jeremy Piven.
I love that part in Jurassic Park 3 with the mobile phone in the belly of the Spinosaurus.
Yeah. Yes.
And they turn around and it's just there looking at them. That was a fun moment.
That movie, I know it gets a lot of hate in the Jurassic Park fandom, but I'll be honest, that's the one that I grew up on the most, so I love it. I think Jurassic Park 3 is a lot of fun. Maybe it's the nostalgia, or maybe I just have a soft spot, but I love it. I do. You talked about Jeremy Piven and some of the cast. Can you go through your casting process for this movie? Did you know you wanted to work with Jeremy, or how did that all come to be?
Yeah, again, before we got into the proper casting process, when we were more pitching it to Hollywood and ideas back then, lots of actors that I was talking to as well for various projects, and I always given this one. And again, I think it takes a certain kind of actor with this movie, because a lot of them, always are looking for that next, dramatic role or something, which is great and amazing. And a lot of people, just like Hollywood studios, sort of went, dinosaurs in Vietnam, I don't know, what is this movie? You know what I mean? So some actors just like, pass, come back to me and work with me on another movie, type thing, which was interesting. And because it's interesting in Hollywood, right? Like, especially the way the mega bucks happen with Netflix and that these days. So actors will go for a smaller movie and a low budget movie if they know it can be, if it's like a great role, they're like Oscar winning role right there. You know what I mean? Like, but if you go to them with a genre film, they're like, oh, well, I'll do it for the paycheck. And when you're someone like us in our, in a small studio, you kind of get neither. You kind of have to go, no, I need you to do it for this price, and I need you to love it, and I need you to do it. And it just takes a certain actor that can say yes to that. So Jeremy is someone that I was talking to for a while. Trisha Helfer was someone that I was talking to for a while, that I wanted to work with, and then Ryan Quanten from True Blood. Wasn't on my radar, and I can't remember exactly how that came to be. But when I talked to him, he had read the script and he was so in the zone of what he wanted to do with the character. I just couldn't say no, because I'm like, this is awesome. And I think his performance throughout the whole film carries. I was blown away with the days of what he was doing, because you just believe him. You just believe that he's this sergeant in this jungle and with these dinosaurs, and it's like, holy shit, this is great. And I think that elevates all the other casts, because actors attract actors and actors then build off each other. And I think once he set the tone for the whole film, it really worked, because all the other actors then came in and we had a camaraderie. And if you like the Pacific, I had Captain Dale Dye. He did a pass of the script for me, because we're good friends now. And I wrote to him like, look, you are a Vietnam veteran. You co-wrote Platoon. I've known you for all these years. Would you have this is take it. Don't think of the dinosaurs. I know it's crazy dinosaurs, Captain Dye. Please, I'm not trying to, rain on the parade of the veterans, but in fact, I want it to be so good that I want you to, have a look at the script and make sure that everything is like copacetic. Because my whole idea going into it, and he agreed, and he had a great sort of letter he wrote to all the cast and crew, because he couldn't come over here to Australia, unfortunately. But he wrote to cast and crew, and he's like, if everything else is 100% accurate, then people are going to believe the film more than if it's just, a hodgepodge film of just these mercenaries or idiot squads going through the jungle. And you're like, well, these people are just stupid, because like no military guy would do this. So our whole idea was like, it's a movie like Platoon that they've marched into Jurassic Park, rather than like a monster movie with just some red shirt soldiers, you know what I mean? So he went through the script, and he had really great notes and some extra little dialogue pieces for me as well, and all the military stuff. And then I brought out one of his Marine Corps attachments who was on the Pacific, and Band of Brothers, who did both those shows. So he flew out. His name is Freddie Joe Farnsworth, an amazing military advisor and ex-Marine. And he flew out, and again, he's just like, I don't care that there's fucking dinosaurs in this movie. We're gonna fucking do this right. So, I'd have the actors with me, and then I'd be like, call Freddie, text Freddie Joe. I'm like, okay, come in. He's like, come in my door office, and he's like, straight up, he's just like, I don't give a fuck. We're gonna do we're gonna do this right. And there's some of the actors who have never experienced were like, okay. And someone like Ryan Quanten was like, fuck yeah, let's fucking do it. So whenever we were not shooting, like they would just go off into the jungle. As we were setting up scenes, they'd go off, and I'm like, well, where are the guys? And like, oh, Freddie's taking them off, and they're just doing stuff. So they're always kept in the zone, and you can feel it on. I feel on the screen, because they became like this unit, and you just has a sense of authenticity, and then adding into like our backgrounds of costumes and props and everything else. So I think and I think that's what the trailers landed a lot with people. Like I read all the comments. I probably shouldn't, but I read all the comments before I go to bed every night, and to keep up, because I want this film to work. I want all my films to work. So I'm always like, fan feedback is the best, because that's literally my audience. And I think that's why Hollywood has this ivory tower thing. And when the film comes out like Snow White, and they're like, what happened? I'm like, maybe should be listening to people a little bit more, you know what I mean? And that's why it's so great that the trailers landed so well, that I read the comments, and it's like the ratio is like insane of all these people just being like, hey, this is the sort of film I want to see. This feels like my childhood. This feels like, I know there's been a few comments of this is what happens when a potentially silly premise is done with people who actually care, and you can tell that there's a bit of weight behind it. We're like, hey, we actually care about this whole process, not just like, yeah, whatever.
Absolutely.
So, and I feel like the cast and then the military aspect with Freddie Joe really, really helped that on the day level, and even with the crew. You know what I mean? like everyone sort of goes, whoop, there's a guy here who's like, you know, marching the extra set, and you know, and making it feel like a military operation, and then it kind of then bleeds on the screen with the cast, so the crew behind it. So that was a really something that I sort of had up my sleeve, that it didn't, you know, it wasn't a huge budgetary expense. It's just more just the fact of let's do it right. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that was something that the casting process and the cast really, really helped with.
Wow. That's great to hear. That's awesome. So obviously Primitive War is book series. We got 4 installments. Do we expect to see 4 movies, or are we waiting to see how this one takes off
I
first?
think you always have to wait and see how it pays off first. So, you know, to fans who want to see more, it's just, you know, speak with your wallet. You know what I mean? Like, just you know, support the film and get out there and see it. Like, we're going to be like, again, the David, all my life, it's a David and versus Goliath story. So, you know, when we come to cinemas, it's going to be, you know, we're not backed by, you know, a huge studio, so it's going to have to be people coming and seeing it, and, you know, or seeing it on Netflix or seeing it whatever, and hope for the best. Definitely, we have plans to, you know, I mean, there's definitely a keen sense that we all want to do it again. And I think, as hard as the shoot was, it's actually one of the first times where like 99.9% of the crew walked away saying like, that was great, let's do it again. You know, literally have, you know, all the actors and all the crew are like at my door being like, when are we gonna do another one? And I've been locked up in editing with my pasty white skin for the last year, because I've been in the edit room for this movie, doing everything. So I'm seeing this movie right through to the end, because I want to make sure it lands well and not just go off and do something else.
Right on. Well, we are creeping up here on the 1 hour mark. Luke, I want to give you a chance to do any plugs. If you have any appearances, anything you would like to get out there, the last little bit of time is all yours.
I don't really want to have to plug too much. I think I've plugged it enough. You know what I mean? Look, I just did that first sort of Comic-Con convention down here on the weekend in Australia, cool. And that's going to be the first of many that we're going to roll out, and I'll come to America as well, which will be great. I'd love to go to San Diego Comic-Con and bring the film there, and there's sort of talks trying at the moment to see if something can work out to go to San Diego in July. But yeah, the convention went really well, and we showed 6 minutes of the film, which was really scary for me as a filmmaker. Every time you show crowds or people, you're always sitting there, and it's such a different vibe, and you have to do it as a filmmaker because it's part of the process. Because you can sit in the edit room and sit back with your popcorn and be like, "Wow, this is great." But even if you have 3 or 4 new people come to the edit room, and the whole thing for me changes, because you're sitting there going, "Oh my god, this is going to land." So I showed 6 minutes, and with really great feedback on the weekend as well. We showed some scenes around the camp scene with the guys of bonding, and we also showed a scene with dinosaurs. So everyone really enjoyed that, which was great feedback for me. But we put out merch for the first time, and this is the first movie that we're sort of diving into merchandise, because I think it works well. So we got those coming out, which will be out soon on our social media / websites on Shopify or whatever, that we can start putting out to the public. And yeah, just keep an eye out on our next, the next. I hope people follow us and like us, and it's like our social medias are at Primitive War Movie, and keep up to date with everything that's going on. Our next trailer will be out in a couple of months with our release date and everything else. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting year and a very interesting time for this movie.
Yes, that was actually my my last question, is if you had a release date, but you said it'll be here in the next trailer. We'll show that off in a few months.
Yeah. Look, we're still like, as much as, like, I guess full circle, as much as the studio sort of went, I didn't understand this movie, they sure do now, because ever since the teaser came out, like, we have fielding lots of different options and offers and everything else for this movie, because now everyone's like, oh, this movie looks great, and the fans seem to love it, and it's been caught on and it went viral. So now it's a different conversation. So it's one of those ones where you can sit back and I was like, well, I told you. That's been very interesting as another aspect of the whole thing. So yeah, we're just working through some options and offers of how we're going to release it in the US, but it's been very exciting times since the last 2 weeks, which has been great.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna have to have you back on once the either next trailer or once the movie comes out. I'm sure you're gonna be super busy. Please come to the Chicagoland area because I would love to come and meet you and say hi.
Yeah, I plan on doing like a bit of a tour across the US. So definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're gonna have to have you back because I have hundreds of questions about even your other work too that you've done in the past. But I just want to say, Luke, thank you so much for coming on. I mean this genuinely. You deserve all the success that you've had and are currently having, and you deserve all the success in the future. Truthfully, God bless you. I appreciate you, Eric. Thank you for doing this with me. To all of our listeners watching live and those that'll watch this later, make sure you guys follow Luke, follow Predative War on all social medias. Check out that or wait for that next trailer to find out when the release date is. And Luke, thank you again. All the success to you, my friend.
Thank you very much, guys, and God bless you too.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.